This game was designed to absolutely crush new players. They throw a legendary-grade demonic dragon right at the end of the tutorial. Its roar alone shatters your mental state, and a single swipe of its massive chains means instant death. You are supposed to accept defeat, but this guy just plants his feet and slides right under the execution swing. He deflects an attack that should have killed him. His eyes track the impossible speed. He slips through the flames, completely unfazed by the difficulty, because to him, dying just isn't an option. In the previous era of virtual reality, one player stood at the absolute pinnacle as the undisputed champion, Kaiser. His mechanics were flawless. His reaction time was godlike, but the universe balanced out his raw talent by cursing him with the most pathetic, miserable luck in human history. Everyone loved watching him fail, but when the old servers shut down, the legend vanished. Fast forward to today. He just got discharged from the military and completely ignores his family because he has only one priority. He sprints straight to his brand new VR capsule. He touches the sleek metal like he's reuniting with an old friend. He puts on the helmet and spawns into a massive new world. He quickly locks in his avatar, flashes a confident smirk, and takes one look at the burning tutorial zone. He equips a rusty starter sword and remembers exactly what he was born to do. He teams up with a frantic NPC knight commander who leads him through a shortcut straight into a swarm of monsters. The beasts surround them in the dark. A massive one lunges for his throat. His eyes lock onto the target. The commander screams for him to look out, but he just watches the blade come down. He tightens his grip. He slices cleanly through its thick armor. He doesn't even blink. He dodges a fatal slam, counters with a devastating knee, and leaves the monster choking on its own blood. He glides through the battlefield like a reaper collecting souls. It feels like his body is even lighter than before. The knight commander is completely speechless. He assumes this random mercenary must be a mythic hero. The NPC's affinity maxes out instantly, and he entrusts our guy with the ultimate suicide mission. So he steps up to the iron doors alone. He realizes he just stumbled into a hidden piece. The cavern trembles, and he comes face to face with the unkillable dragon, a legendary boss meant to be a guaranteed loss. He blocks strikes that push him to the absolute limit. He does a pathetic amount of damage to a boss with nearly 1 million health points, but he refuses to break. He perfectly parries every single pattern until the monster finally shatters. The system rewards him for doing the impossible by showering him with unique traits, and then he sees it, a legendary ability, the Eyes of Truth, an overpowering skill that pierces through all hidden secrets. The man with the worst luck in the world just hit the ultimate jackpot. He casually walks back out of the boss room. The knight commander hears the silence and realizes this kid just soloed a god-tier threat without taking a single scratch. The commander is completely overwhelmed. He looks at this player with pure reverence. He drops to his knees in the dirt, and he pledges his eternal loyalty. The tragedy of the tutorial has been entirely rewritten. Charlie, the knight commander, kneels in the ruins of Arlen Castle. What was supposed to be a scripted tragedy is now a flawless victory. Before warping out, Charlie hands over a covenant necklace forged from his own blood, a hero-grade artifact granted only to the one player who defied destiny. The warp sequence initiates. Kaiser materializes inside the Pantheon. In lore, this is the divine realm, where heroes choose a god to serve. In gamer terms, it is the infamous card pack opening spot. Millions of players have shed tears of frustration right here. Kaiser knows the pain of a bad pull. His luck in the previous game was a documented disaster. But today is different. He activates his new unique skill, the Eyes of Truth. The ability pierces the illusion, highlighting a single golden card in the massive swarm. He snatches it. A myth-grade god, the one-armed sword god, Tyr, a guaranteed top-tier pull on his first try. Then the system spits back a massive red error. The god of war is furious. The game states Kaiser lacks the required vessel. Players are supposed to die to the tutorial dragon and meet a goddess in the afterlife. Kaiser skipped that step by murdering the unkillable boss. His golden ticket is useless. Frustration sets in. He considers deleting his character. Then his eyes catch a flicker of light on the floor. A crimson card lies discarded in the dust, a grade no one has ever documented. He picks it up and triggers the legacy of Hasiar, the forgotten last adventurer. The adventurer class is broken. It bypasses every single weapon restriction in the game. Combining that with his other traits creates a perfect hybrid fighter. He accepts the class with zero hesitation. The warp sends him straight to Arda, the city of beginnings. The starter hub is packed with rookies and guild recruiters shouting over each other. Corporate scouters roam the streets looking for promising talent. They spot Kaiser and assume he is a broken player with zero potential. Unbothered, Kaiser checks his inventory and equips Charlie's necklace. The hero grade stats give him an absurd defense boost right out of the gate. He approaches a local hunter and grabs a standard goblin cleanup quest. Soloing is an option. The party play grants massive bonus experience. He falls in with a classic trio, a tank named Top Shield, an archer, and a healer. The archer catches his in-game name and assumes he is a hardcore fanboy. Kaiser plays along. Letting them think he is a role player saves him a headache. Out in the field, Top Shield steps up to block a green goblin. A mana bolt flies through the air. It's striking the creature in the face. Top Shield holds his ground, demanding support, but the tank botches his cooldown management and the goblin lunges. Kaiser steps in, draws his blade, and decapitates the monster before it lands. The trio cheers, praising his reaction time. The celebration does not last long. A screech echoes from the tree line. An entire horde of goblins pours out of the brush. Weapons drawn, Top Shield breaks into a cold sweat and yells for the party to run. Kaiser draws his sword and charges straight into the mob. The goblins launch themselves through the air like rabid animals. A shockwave rips through the clearing as he deflects the initial wave. The party watches in horror, thinking their DPS just committed suicide. But Kaiser does not not fight reckless battles. He fights battles he knows he will win. A crescent of pure force erupts outward, tearing the front line to shreds. He evades a spear thrust and buries his blade into a goblin's chest. The system acknowledges the kill and showers him with loot. The guide states that players should pick off multiple enemies from a distance. Kaiser ignores the guide. His overcome trait activates, pushing his physical limits beyond normal boundaries. He severs a goblin's arm without breaking a sweat. He snatches a drop dagger out of midair. Thanks to the adventurer trait, his body knows the exact stance to wield it. The blade sinks into a goblin's skull with lethal precision. A larger goblin drops a spiked mace. Kaiser swaps weapons again. He activates the swing skill, crushing a goblin's head like a melon. He stands amid a mountain of corpses, admiring his new hybrid combat style. Any top shield lowers his guard, his jaw hanging open. A level 1 player soloed an ambush that would have wiped a veteran squad. The tank pieces the puzzle together. This guy is the authentic god-tier champion. The group stands in awe, realizing they recruited the best player in the world. The system chimes with a rare emergency quest. An alchemist needs fresh blood from a mutant goblin warrior. Top shield pales at the name. The target resides in a notorious dungeon, the Noob Crusher. Countless parties have wiped inside. The archer and healer hesitate. If they fail this, their confidence will hit rock bottom. But clearing it is a mandatory milestone. They have to bite the bullet. With Kaiser leading the charge, the party decides to risk it. They approach the massive stone doors of the boss lair. The portal accepts their entry. Yet the tunnel is dark and ominous, lit only by flickering torches. The cavern opens up, revealing a hulking, blood-red monster. The mutant goblin warrior roars. This elite boss radiates pure rage. The beast kicks off the ground and launches itself toward the party. Top shield plants his feet and raises his defense. He has to hold the line. The monster brings the hammer down. The force of the blow crushes Top shield into the dirt, stunning him. The archer and healer throw everything they have at the beast. The tank activates his guardian trait to absorb the incoming damage. The monster shakes off the spells and swings its giant blade. A massive blast of energy explodes against the shield. A health bar warning flashes. The boss drops below 10,000 HP. The ground erupts in a massive shockwave as the berserk phase begins. The archer screams. This is the exact pattern that wipes rookie teams. In a future interview, a reporter asks Kaiser the secret behind his unbeatable party. She notes that a standard raid composition requires a dedicated tank to interrupt patterns. Kaiser smirks. He tells her he handles the tank duties himself. Back in the cavern, he proves it. He slashes the monster's tendons, interrupting the attack. He operates as the tank and the DPS at the same time, ready to break the game entirely. The mutant goblin warrior unleashes a deafening roar that shakes the cavern walls. Kaiser doesn't even blink. He charges straight into the berserk pattern. It closes the gap and carves a massive arc across the beast's chest. The party watches in stunned silence. He targets only the vital points. Top shield realizes Kaiser just interrupted the boss pattern again. The monster's health bar plummets deep into the red zone. He screams for everyone to brace for phase 2. The archer and healer ready their spells, expecting a massive area attack. The system confirms the health drop below 20%. The beast's muscles engorge, flooding with raw, volatile mana. A system window announces the manifestation of a unique trait. The cavern shakes as the warrior's stance activates. All its stats skyrocket into a permanent frenzy. The Kaiser tightens his grip, waiting for the impact. This specific boss carries a specialized mutant rule, a combat rule known as 007 Bang. Landing 4 consecutive physical hits triggers a devastating party-wide debuff. The beast howls, ready to reflect all incoming magic damage. A massive speed reduction hits the entire backline. The archer curses the sudden drop in mobility, but Kaiser's hero trait blocks the mental contamination entirely. Top shield orders the party to stop attacking and focus purely on evasion. He asks if Kaiser can handle the front line alone. Kaiser finds the question insulting. A red aura bleeds from his body as he promises to carve the monster into pieces. He leaps into the air, evading a massive downward sweep. The blade tears through empty space. Kaiser meets the iron head-on. He slides under the creature's guard, finding the blind spot. His blade bites deep into the exposed flesh. The archer watches, realizing the boss's crowd control isn't working on Kaiser at all. Top shield thought this guy was just a god of raw damage. But looking at him now, the truth is way more terrifying. Kaiser deflects a shield bash with perfect timing. He fights like the literal god of battle. Another swift cut severs the monster's tendons. Top shield stares at the name floating above the swordsman's head. The mutant goblin launches a desperate final assault. Kaiser locks eyes with the beast, tracking the movement. He brings his blade around in a wide, sweeping arc. He strings together a rapid sequence of lethal strikes, tearing through the armor. The system announces a level up. His swordsmanship proficiency climbs to level 7. The bonus damage tears another chunk of health away from the boss. He drives the steel straight down through the creature's collarbone. His rage effect stacks an additional 10% damage. He grabs the hilt with both hands, muscles tensed. He brings it down like an executioner's axe. The goblin lets out a final gurgling shriek. The massive body hits the cavern floor. The system confirms the mutant's defeat. The Noob Crusher dungeon is officially cleared. The trio stands frozen, staring at the corpse. Top shield turns to the archer, his face pale. He asks if there's any chance this guy is the real deal. The archer scoffs at the impossible idea. They all watch him quietly. Kaiser stands victorious over the giant carcass. The dungeon clear time is calculated at under 30 minutes. He pulls his blade free from the flesh. He reclaims the #1 spot on the time attack rankings. The rank 1 contribution rewards pour in. He obtains the mutant goblin's red leather top. A rare grade piece of armor drops into his inventory, followed by the red gauntlets and the red epaulets, plus the signature weapon. weapon, the Red Greatsword. He also secures the exclusive Throne of Time attack title, a hero grade title that permanently increases all stats every time a record is broken. Kaiser gives a satisfied smirk. He knows exactly how to handle goblin types. He steps away from the wreckage, feeling good about his haul. Goblins are always best when sliced up into pieces. Back with the party, the others are checking their system screens. They realize they just earned a hero grade title thanks to him. The archer practically bows in gratitude. Now Kaiser tells them not to mention it. He keeps his identity hidden, playing the humble mercenary. Top Shield nervously asks him to check the leaderboards. The second place party belongs to an unknown group. Top Shield apologizes for not hiding their party name beforehand. Kaiser brushes it off. Getting his name on the top spot is a massive privilege. Earning a rank 1 clear usually guarantees a scouting offer from a top 10 guild. Even in a starter city, it paints a target on his back. He just unseated the notorious player named Massacre. Top Shield offers monetary compensation for the incoming headache. Kaiser just smiles. He assures them it is fine. He never expected to take first place anyway. To him, the spotlight is just exhausting noise. The only thing he cares about right now is the loot. He reviews the stats of the full warrior set. This gear is the absolute best equipment available for his level. With this haul, his mood is untouchable. Top Shield asks if he is really okay with the unwanted fame. Kaiser covers his face, pretending the attention bothers him, but he waves them off and accepts their full loyalty. The trio cheers his name like he is a religious figure. The system announces the dungeon session is closing. A bright blue exit portal materializes in the cavern. The archer admits he thought the forum posts about Kaiser were exaggerated. Now he understands the hype. Kaiser steps toward the portal, ready to leave. He strides through the light. The entire party exits the boss room. Back in the Arda back alleys, the party steps into a hidden alchemist shop. Kaiser scans the dusty room. He approaches a cloaked figure behind the counter. Yet the man demands to know who they are. Call to the alchemist, a notoriously difficult NPC. The archer whispers that the guy looks like a massive creep. Kaiser ignores the warning and steps right up to the desk. He slams the vial of mutant goblin blood onto the wood. Kalde's eyes go wide. He cannot believe they obtained it so fast. Kaiser stands tall with his party backing him up. The system confirms a massive increase in affinity. The emergency blood quest is marked complete. He receives gold, experience, and a custom silver ring. 2 consecutive level ups flash across his vision. He passes Trial 0. The system notes that Trial 0 rankings remain hidden from the public. He also earns a lesser skill draw ticket. Reaching level 10 triggers another reward prompt. The party celebrates finally unlocking the main continent. He receives a special postcard from Kalde. It is a rare grade item that he decides to inspect later. Right now, his focus is entirely on the skill draw ticket. 5 holographic cards fan out in front of him. He triggers his unique skill. The Eyes of Truth activate, piercing through the card animations. He selects the best one and obtains Charging Slash, a normal grade dash attack that scales with movement speed. It is a decent gap closer, but he has his eye on something better. He pulls up the random skill draw ticket next. A massive red warning interrupts his screen. The system initiates a forced logout in 5 seconds. The game enforces strict time limits to prevent real-world starvation. He realizes he has been strapped in for 10 straight hours. The draw cards are still hovering in the air. The countdown hits 2 seconds. The cards begin to fade. 1 second. He frantically lunges for the cards before the server kicks him. He wakes up inside his VR capsule in the real world. He gasps for air, his body stiff from the marathon session. He stretches his neck, feeling the fatigue deep in his bones. Morning sunlight hits his apartment building. His alarm rings exactly at 10 o'clock. He wastes 0 time and climbs straight back into the machine. The system verifies his iris scan. The synchronization sequence drops him right back into the virtual world. He spawns back into the Arde back alleys. He immediately pulls up his menu, desperate to know if his final click registered. He bites his thumb, sweating over the potential lost loot. The system shows 1 unchecked skill in storage. He sighs in relief. He opens it and his jaw drops. It is a hero grade skill, Backstab. Backstab is the patented, terrifying signature move of the assassin class, a ridiculous teleportation strike that closes the gap instantly, and he just pulled it on a swordsman build. This single skill turns him into an inescapable damage dealer. He covers his face to hide his manic laughter. A couple of passing players give him strange looks. They think he is losing his mind. He stands in the alley giggling to himself like a villain. The power trip is fully setting in. The passing couple quickly decides to take another route. They jog away from the weirdo in the alley. He composes himself and opens his inventory. He equips the full warrior set and called silver ring. He hoists the massive red greatsword over his shoulder. The system asks if he is ready to move to Raven. Bay is the first city of the main continent. Moving forward means he can never return to the beginner zone. A massive dimensional tear rips open in the courtyard. He spares 1 quick glance backward. He remembers the rookie party he carried through the dungeon. He hopes they survive the grind. He steps into the rift. He materializes in the bustling plaza of Raven. Unlike the segregated starter zones, this city connects all players. The architecture is massive, a true fantasy capital. Armored knights ride through the cobblestone streets on horseback. The guards drag a screaming player away in thick ropes. The system unlocks arenas, duels, and workshops. The beginner benefits vanish instantly. The real game has officially begun. A tip window warns him to report any crimes to the guards. The safe zone rules are significantly different here. He admires the realistic scale of the continent. A local NPC merchant tries to sell him some ash beer. Another vendor shoves a massive lobster in his direction. He completely understands why players get distracted by sightseeing. He slaps both cheeks to wake himself up. Sightseeing comes later. Right now, he needs to hunt. He tests out the red greatsword on a local goblin. The Raven Plains are packed with low-level monster spawns. His 3-piece this warrior set grants an intimidation effect against goblin types. The green skins literally tremble in his presence. He activates Charging Slash and tearing through the mob in a single motion. The bonus damage numbers flood his screen. He drops 2 goblins before they can even draw their weapons. He pushes off the dirt, building momentum. A red aura bleeds from the great sword as its unique passive activates. The weapon gains permanent attack power with every enemy defeated. He rests the heavy blade on the ground, completely satisfied. Stomping low-level mobs with overpowered gear is a highly intoxicating feeling. He checks his quest log, calculating his next level up. Then, his eyes track a shift in the shadows. A purple outline of a stealthed player creeps up behind him. The hidden player draws a poison dagger. The attacker lunges straight for his spine. Kaiser brings the flat of his greatsword around to block it. The assassin's eyes widen in disbelief. Kaiser turns to face him, his eyes glowing red. The assassin breaks stealth and yells for his party to attack. 3 arrows shoot out from the tree line. Kaiser spins his blade, swatting the projectiles out of the air. A berserker with a hand axe charges in from the flank. Kaiser parries the axe swing with brute force. He shoves the heavy attacker backward into the dirt. He shifts his grip on the greatsword's hilt. He cleaves straight through the berserker's chest. The assassin watches his tank get obliterated in one hit. He curses the absurd damage output of a supposed rookie. The berserker hits the ground dead. Kaiser towers over the remaining attacker. He smiles and asks if they lost their way. Unofficial PvP is common on the main continent. Player killing for fun, loot, or sheer frustration happens every day. Yeah, but the absolute lowest rung of the ladder belongs to one specific group, the Noob Slayers. Cowards who prey on players fresh out of the beginner village to steal their meager gear, like the absolute trash currently standing in front of him. Kaiser finds the whole situation hilarious. The assassin's target mark vanishes. He realizes Kaiser just activated a skill. A swordsman using an assassin's teleportation skill breaks every rule in the game. A fountain of blood erupts from the assassin's back. Kaiser dismantles the rest of the hidden party in seconds. The system classifies the dead players as evildoers. The kills register as self-defense, keeping his karma clean. He realizes how sheltered the beginner village really was. Out here, you either defend your loot or lose everything. He crouches down and loots a glowing pendant off one of the bodies. With his level at 17, the heavy iron doors to the west gate unlock. He steps into the Ravenwest Forest, a dense, suffocating hunting ground, swarming with high-level monsters. The area carries an unspoken rule: never enter without a party. That is exactly why the entrance is packed with players looking for groups. Tanks and damage dealers shout their stats, desperate for a healer. Good support classes are incredibly rare at this level. Nobody wants to play the healing role because leveling it is a nightmare. A tank notices Kaiser walking past the crowd. He assumes Kaiser is just another arrogant fool trying to solo the forest. Even top rankers form parties for this zone. They all watch him walk straight into the trees alone. Kaiser ignores the whispers. Deep inside the dark woods, the real hunt begins. He cleaves a forest red goblin in half. Another goblin drops from the branches above. He slams his great sword into the ground. The shockwave blasts the creature backward. He follows through with a horizontal sweep. The sheer force tears up the dirt. The goblin is crushed under the weight of the strike. He strings the momentum into another fluid cut. Poison darts fly at his face. He parries them with the flat of his blade. The hidden archer freezes in fear. Kaiser drops his stance and loads power into his legs. He unleashes a spinning slash that generates a miniature tornado. The goblin is instantly liquefied. He brings the weapon down hard, ending the combat phase. The warrior set's intimidation effect deactivates. The surviving monsters scatter into the brush. Kaiser swaps his greatsword for a heavy axe. His adventurer class bypasses all weapon restrictions. He unlocks the basic axe skills instantly. He triggers the backstab skill. He teleports behind a fleeing goblin and chops it down. He chains it into the smash skill. A dozen more red goblins swarm him from all sides. He becomes a blender of iron and blood. Every swing connects with bone. He admits that axes have a highly satisfying feel to them. The system logs another kill. The forest floor is littered with corpses. His axe proficiency levels up as he reviews his quest log. He hears something massive moving behind him. A giant forest centipede erupts from the ground. The grotesque insect snaps its mandibles at him. Kaiser curses his luck. He hates bugs. The monster crashes through the trees, snapping massive logs in half. It strikes like a whip. Kaiser barely dodges the acidic bite. He draws the great sword and swings hard at its armored shell. His eyes lock onto the gaps between the plates. The insect screeches as the blade bites. He brings the massive sword down in a perfect vertical line. Noxious green blood explodes from the wound. The beast thrashes wildly, tearing up the earth. Kaiser lands safely outside its reach. He watches the monster bleed out. He steps back in to finish the job. He drives the steel directly into its head. Sparks of mana erupt from the fatal strike. He rips the blade out, coating himself in monster fluid. The centipede collapses entirely. He chops down one last time to be sure. The giant insect stops twitching. The massive experience drop levels him up again. He reviews his stat sheet, noting the rapid progression. He has cleared almost all of his daily tasks. Only one basic quest remains: delivering the lost pendant. He sheathes his great sword. He heads toward the designated drop-off point. A massive crowd of players is lined up near the quest NPC. People are shouting and shoving each other over respawn times. He spots the tree where the item usually drops. He is glad he already grabbed the item off the dead PKR. As he walks away, he overhears a conversation. Some players are talking about an execution order issued for a specific PKER. They mention that the dead assassin was rambling about a guy named Kaiser. Kaiser stops walking. The players joke that the assassin claimed a swordsman used backstab on him. Kaiser pulls his collar up, realizing he left a witness alive. If the top guilds find out he holds 6 traits and cross-class skills, and some might try to recruit him, but most will try to crush him before he becomes a threat, especially the aggressive guilds from the previous game. He looks at the pendant in his hand. He decides it is too early to draw the server's attention. He returns to the city of Raven. He hands the lost pendant over to the NPC girl, Camilla. The quest clears, granting gold and experience. She tells him it is her most precious possession. As a bonus, she hands him a glowing random box. He pats her on the head, thanking her for the loot. Her affinity rating maxes out immediately. He waves goodbye, noting how easy it is to gain affinity with younger NPCs. He approaches the bounty board for his next task. He finds a rare grade dungeon conquest mission. It requires clearing out the Goblin Chieftain's hideout. The problem is, and this specific dungeon strictly requires a party. He doesn't want to expose his hybrid abilities to random players just yet. He arrives at the dungeon entrance anyway. The area is packed with groups begging for fire mages. Merchants have set up stalls right outside the safe zone. He weaves through the desperate recruiters. A rogue tries to join a party and gets rejected on the spot. The leader claims they only want high DPS mages. A low-level mage walks up and gets swarmed with invites immediately. He watches the severe class discrimination in real time. In this specific dungeon, fire magic is absolute. Swordsmen are practically useless here. Suddenly, a blonde player approaches him. He asks if Kaiser wants to join their party. The guy introduces a full team and claims they don't care about his class. Kaiser immediately recognizes the trap, but he smiles and accepts the invite anyway. He joins the party led by a player named Bastard Sword. He knows exactly what these guys are planning. They are PK heirs looking for a meat shield to take the aggro before they rob him. The system warning is completely unnecessary. The group discreetly assesses his gear. They recognize the red greatsword and the full warrior set. They realize he is the player the forums have been talking about. Kaiser plays the part of the clueless rookie perfectly. The leader formally welcomes him into the squad. They laugh, promising to carry him through the quest. He nods, letting them believe they have the upper hand. The contract is set. They step inside the Goblin Chieftain's hideout. The group effortlessly dispatches the outer guards. The system warns that the chieftain has been alerted. The leader wipes his blade, acting confident. Kaiser observes their movements. Their damage and teamwork are surprisingly solid. The cavern echoes with the sound of reinforcements. The leader suggests Kaiser take the front line to show off his skills. The mage chimes in, promising to back him up if things get dicey. Kaiser knows they just want him to burn his stamina. He kicks off the ground without a word. He activates Charging Slash. He carves straight through the front line formation. The leader whispers to his friend, confirming the target. They agree his damage output is unusually high for a basic swordsman. Kaiser decapitates another goblin while they talk. The leader notes how efficiently he dodges vital strikes, but he admits something feels off. He is fast, yes, but their assassin friend was a PvP specialist. The mage tells them to stop overthinking it. They decide to just take him out and take the gear. The plan remains unchanged. The leader fixes his friendly mask and turns back to the fight. Kaiser finishes off the last regular mob. The leader claps, praising his technique. The squad walks over the corpses, pretending to be impressed. Kaiser smiles back, matching their fake energy perfectly. The leader boasts about his eye for talent. Kaiser's inner monologue notes their absolute shamelessness. These guys will abandon him the second the boss arrives, and loot his corpse before it even hits the ground. The party agrees to push into the boss room. He decides to wait for the perfect opening to bury them all. Suddenly, the leader takes a massive hit to the jaw. The tank barely gets his shield up in time. An elite red goblin breaks through the rock wall. The leader screams at the mage to cast. The mage panics, claiming she hit the mark perfectly. Kaiser watches them struggle. The system announces the boss stage is opening. The massive stone doors groan open. The goblin chieftain locks onto the intruders. 2 elite soldiers rush out of the darkness. The strongest, most well-trained monsters in the dungeon. They launch themselves into the air, weapons raised. The leader screams at Kaiser to hold them off. The elites land right where the party was standing, but Kaiser is gone. The friend points frantically toward the tunnel. He realizes the rookie just ditched them. The leader is forced to parry a lethal strike himself. The sheer weight of the blow drives him to his knees. He orders the team to kill it fast. The mage tries to cast, but a shadow falls over her. A massive boulder plummets from the ceiling. She barely dives out of the way before it pulverizes the ground. She looks up in absolute terror. A colossal foot steps into the light. The leader realizes the chieftain is already here. Meanwhile, Kaiser steps calmly out of the shadows. The mage curses him for abandoning them. He walks toward the group, his greatsword resting on his shoulder. He smiles and mentions the assassin they were talking about earlier. The mage stammers, asking for a temporary truce to clear the boss. Kaiser nods, agreeing that clearing the dungeon is the logical priority. The mage's face twists into a relieved, sinister grin, until a blade bursts straight through her chest. Kaiser leans in close, whispering that he does not want to team up. He steps past her collapsing body. The mage coughs blood, unable to comprehend what just happened. He casually asks if the assassin's name was Boy. He confirms they are his friends. The dynamic in the cavern shifts instantly. The PK ears realize their prey just turned into the predator. The system announces the death of the archmage. Her status confirms her as an evildoer. He used backstab on the corpse to close the distance without taking aggro. The leader screams, asking if he expects them to just die quietly. Kaiser asks if they want to hear his motto. The leader snarls. Kaiser draws the assassin's dagger. He states that once someone aims for his back, they are already dead. The leader recognizes the unique weapon immediately. Kaiser notes the recognition. A swordsman using assassin skills with stolen gear is impossible to process. The leader raises his weapon, asking how Kaiser plans to clear the boss alone. Behind them, the goblin chieftain erupts in a massive flare of red mana. The PK ears thought mages were the only viable damage dealers in this dungeon. They assumed physical attack attacks from a rogue weapon were a joke. Kaiser stands there with a grin, holding the assassin's dagger. The remaining PK heir thinks a simple weapon effect like bleed won't do anything. He would be right if this were a normal bleed effect. The PK heir realizes something is horribly wrong. A massive tornado of pure force erupts from the center of the cavern. The sheer pressure sweeps across the stone. Kaiser stands over the carnage, watching the remaining goblins get torn apart. The system calculates the overwhelming difference in stats. The PKR coughs up a mouthful of blood. Because Kaiser's sense stat is so high, the bleed effect triggers with maximum efficiency. The massive goblin chieftain drops to its knees, all unable to handle the damage multiplier. The boss's health plummets below 50% in an instant. The PKR stares in absolute horror. A level 20 player holding a level 20 dagger should not be doing this kind of damage. The bleed skill from the gacha ticket applies a debuff that scales with the stat gap, and against all known logic, the effect stacks. Even Kaiser didn't realize how broken this combination would be. The PK accuses him of being a hacker. Kaiser just watches him bleed out. The system confirms the death of the player named Bastard Sword. Since the target was marked as an evildoer, Kaiser's karma rating stays pristine. He sighs, tired of dealing with predictable trash. The remaining PK realize their leader is dead. They stare at the bodies littering the cavern floor. The realization sets in. They pick the wrong target. The last survivor turns to run. Kaiser raises the dagger, the blade glowing with lethal intent. The survivor drops to his knees, coughing up dark blood. The boss's health drops below 10%. The system logs another player kill. Another evildoer eliminated. The elite goblin guards fall right alongside them. Kaiser checks his status screen, highly satisfied with his stat distribution. The goblin chieftain lets out a low, guttural growl. Enraged by the death of its subordinates, the boss initiates its final phase. The massive beast charges through the dust. Kaiser's eyes lock onto the target. The chieftain launches its massive bulk through the air. It stomps the ground, aiming to crush him. The impact kicks up a blinding cloud of debris. Kaiser leaps right through the dust cloud and drives his knee into the creature's jaw. The chieftain roars, spitting blood. Kaiser draws his greatsword and brings it down on the exposed flesh. The boss activates its selfish defense trait. Kaiser channels mana into his blade, preparing a heavy strike. He drives the monster backward against the cavern wall with a sweeping arc. The bleed effect stacks again. The chieftain's health gauge drops rapidly through the warning zones. The beast glares at him, panting heavily. It realizes it is outmatched. Kaiser readies his dagger, aiming to finish the job. The goblin shrieks in desperation. Kaiser triggers the backstab skill. He vanishes before the creature can even flinch. He reappears midair, right above the beast's blind spot. He brings the blade down. The goblin stares up, now helpless against the speed. Kaiser delivers the final strike. The monster lets out one last agonized cry. It tries to flee toward the tunnel entrance. Kaiser teleports again, cutting off the escape route. He positions himself right in front of its face. He asks the beast where it thinks it is going. The blade arcs through the dark. The goblin chieftain collapses, dead. The system announces the dungeon clear. The achievement is recorded in the Tome of Adventures. A level up notification flashes across his vision. His dagger proficiency climbs to level 5. He checks the loot and finds the goblin chieftain's sturdy leather belt, a rare grade item. He notes that he actually needed a new belt. He equips it immediately. His health takes a minor hit from unequipping the old item, but the new belt provides a solid strength boost and an increase to his maximum health. He stands in the quiet cavern, thinking about the PK ears he just crushed. It is a shame they did not drop more gear. Then he notices a glowing blue item on the ground, a player drop, a rare grade silver iron shield. He inspects it, realizing someone spent a fortune on this defensive gear. Next to it lies Bastard's practice sword, another rare item. He remembers the blonde leader who thought he was going to rob a rookie. He gathers the loot, planning to sell it all for a massive profit. His eyes of truth passive suddenly pulses. He looks toward the back of the cavern. A strange, intense light bleeds through the rock wall. The system reveals a hidden path, the Black Goblin Shaman's hideout. He stands before a swirling crimson portal. Earning the Competent Explorer title confirms he is the first person to find it. The game features countless dungeon types, but secret dungeons are the rarest. Most players will never see one in their entire playthrough. They require absurd, specific conditions just to trigger the entrance. Even dedicated explorer classes spend months searching for them, without success. The system verifies the entry requirements. He is the sole survivor of the previous dungeon. He is not in a party. He reads the conditions and laughs. To find this, a player had to enter a party-required dungeon alone, survive, and locate the hidden door. No wonder it remained undiscovered. It is a hero-grade single-boss encounter. He grips his sword and steps inside. The portal swallows him. The moment he materializes, a dark sphere of magic slams into his face. He raises his arms, bracing against the impact. The curse attempts to blind him, but his hero trait instantly nullifies the mental corruption. Dark energy shatters against his passive defense. He smiles at the warm welcome. A raspy voice echoes through the chamber, furious at the intrusion. The creature commends his lack of fear. Kaiser lowers his guard and surveys the room. He is surrounded by summoned undead. Undead goblins and massive spiders crawl out of the shadows. He grimaces. He really hates bugs. At the far end of the hall sits Jihad Black, a centuries-old goblin noble. Finding a named boss this early in the game is a massive opportunity. He knows secret dungeons are tough, but a named boss means legendary drops. He remembers the insane loot from the tutorial dragon and gets excited. Jihad stares down from his stone throne, confused. The goblin senses a bizarre mixture of energies within the human. Kaiser is impressed by the monster's perception. Jihad raises a hand, flooding the room with volatile purple mana. The undead minions shriek, empowered by their master's magic. The goblin mocks Kaiser for looking so calm. Kaiser smirks. He plans to teach this caster a a lesson about positioning. When a ranged fighter faces a melee opponent, they should never let them close the gap. Jihad's eyes widen as Kaiser vanishes. The goblin triggers corpse manipulation to defend himself. He detonates one of his own minions in a massive explosion. The blast wave tears through the chamber. Jihad scans the smoke, looking for the human, but he realizes he missed. Kaiser stands behind him, his greatsword radiating red energy. He draws his dagger with his other hand, ready to strike. The bleeding status effect applies instantly. Jihad stumbles backward, bleeding from a fresh wound. Kaiser asks if he is surprised. He warned him to stay on his toes. The goblin curses, and summoning another wave of dark magic, he hurls cursed projectiles at high speed. Kaiser leaps out of the blast radius just in time. Jihad reaches out, casting another explosive spell. Multiple detonations rock the cavern walls, but Kaiser's eyes track every single movement. He reads the cast times and predicts the impact zones. He weaves through the explosions, untouched. The goblin screams, promising to end this. He initiates his ultimate move, Great Corpse Explosion. A massive singularity of energy forms in the center of the room. Jihad channels all his mana into the spell. The shockwave rips the ground apart. Kaiser keeps his focus, reading the precise trajectory of the attack. He knows exactly what the goblin is planning. He dashes forward, closing the distance while the goblin is locked in the casting animation. Jihad smiles, all thinking he caught the human in his trap. The spell reaches its critical mass. The goblin boasts about going easy on his test subject, but Kaiser is already right next to him. He throws a clean, brutal punch straight into the goblin's face. The spell fizzles instantly as Jihad staggers backward. Kaiser stands tall, his aura flaring. The goblin clutches his broken nose, swearing revenge. Kaiser hits him again, a raw, physical blow that interrupts the next cast. He strings together a rapid sequence of bare-handed strikes, pummeling the caster. The goblin cannot find an opening to use his magic. He screams for a timeout. Kaiser stops mid-swing, his fist coated in the goblin's green blood. Jihad complains that hitting the bone is a foul in combat. Kaiser stares at him blankly. This is supposed to be a terrifying hero-grade boss. The magic damage was high, sure, but the monster's physical defense is an absolute joke. Jihad tries to sneak a spell while Kaiser is distracted. He gathers dark energy behind his back. The system announces the manifestation of Bloodline Factor. The goblin's grade is about to increase to Hero Plus. Kaiser realizes letting him finish the cast would be a terrible idea. Hero Plus tier bosses require full raid groups to defeat. He grips his great sword and dashes forward to interrupt the transformation. His strength stat breaks the 100-point threshold. He dumped every single stat point he had into pure offensive power. The warrior set applies its massive attack buff. He loads everything he has into a single downward swing. The impact shakes the entire cavern. The fury effect adds another 10% damage to boss monsters. Jihad looks up at the incoming blade, terrified. No amount of magic can save him from raw, overwhelming DPS. The blade cleaves straight down. A massive spray of blood paints the stone. The secret dungeon boss, Jihad Black, is slain. The clear message flashes across the screen. The achievement is locked into the Book of Adventures. He receives amplified rewards for being the first discoverer. A massive golden chest drops from the ceiling. He loots the Black Goblin Shaman's Vengeful Spirit Orb, a hero-grade accessory, and the Shaman's Robe, an item that blocks facial recognition. He smiles. The stats are niche, but the utility is perfect for hiding his identity. He finds another item, Trace of the Forgotten Clan. The grade is a string of question marks. He recognizes this pattern from the old game. Unidentified items usually lead to massive hidden quests. He pockets it. The final piece of loot is an unidentified card. In this game, cards are used for skills and enchantments, but boss cards are something else entirely. He taps the identification button. It reveals the soul of Jihad Black, a guardian summon card. Guardians are entities that protect the user, like a mage's salamander or an alchemist's golem. He scratches his head. Yet most guardians are useless money sinks. Unless it is a divine beast, feeding and maintaining them is a nightmare. He hits the summon button anyway. Lightning crackles as a tiny, pathetic-looking goblin materializes. Jihad looks at his own hands, horrified by his new diminutive form. Kaiser stares at his new overpowered guardian. It looks like a plush toy. The goblin wails, insulted that he has been reduced to serving a human. Kaiser reads the guardian traits: bully the weak, cower before the strong, and opportunist. The loyalty stat is sitting at absolute 0. The system warns that the guardian might literally stab him in the back. Jihad glares at him, already plotting a betrayal. Kaiser sighs. He cannot tolerate insubordination from his own loot. He steps toward the goblin, towering over him. Jihad stammers, taking a step back. Kaiser demands to know why the goblin called him a human instead of master. He yells, his eyes flaring with intimidating red mana. The goblin shivers, realizing he is dealing with a monster. Kaiser cracks his knuckles. He decides an attitude adjustment is required. Jihad breaks into a cold sweat. Kaiser promises to deliver exactly 1 hit per second until the loyalty improves. The goblin panics. A swift kick sends the tiny creature flying across the cavern. The system confirms the guardian attachment process is complete. The physical correction works wonders. The loyalty stat begins to climb steadily. He logs out. Evening sunlight filters into his real-world apartment. He walks into the living room, asking his sister if there is any food. She is lying on the couch, eating chips and ignoring him. He glares at her, annoyed by the absolute laziness. He asks what she is watching on the television. She tells him it is a broadcast about the game God of Savior. He is surprised she plays it. She casually mentions she is already level 71. He stares at her in disbelief. That takes serious grinding. She admits a friend is carrying her through the content. She takes a jab at him for rotting away in his VR capsule for 10 hours a day. He chooses to ignore the insult. He turns his attention to the television screen screen. The news anchor is discussing the Hero Guild. Kaiser recognizes the name immediately. His sister explains they are incredibly popular, rivaling even the top ranker Massacre. He points out they are not even a top 10 guild in terms of power. She says it doesn't matter because the guild master, Burge, is handsome. The female player base loves them. Kaiser looks at the screen. The guy looks like a generic pretty boy. His sister teases him, saying Burge is on a completely different level than him. He holds his tongue, thinking she looks like a pelican eating those chips. He decides he needs to go work out to clear his head. She mentions that the Hero Guild makes massive amounts of money from YouTube streams. Some of their raid videos hit 100 million views. Kaiser freezes. He does the math in his head. 100 million views translates to roughly a billion won. He visualizes it in fried chicken. He walks away like a zombie, muttering the number to himself. The sheer amount of money breaks his brain. He closes the door to his room. His sister watches him leave, all wondering why he is acting so creepy. He sinks back into the capsule. The ID verification completes. The server drops him back into the forest. First order of business, he activates his recording software. If a pretty boy can make a billion won, so can he. Jihad steps out of a summon portal, rubbing his eyes. The goblin casually greets him. Kaiser immediately corrects the informal tone. Jihad nervously corrects himself, appending master to the sentence. Kaiser tosses the shaman's robe at the goblin. He explains he cannot equip it yet, and the goblin needs to cover up. Jihad is furious. He refuses to wear his own boss drop like a hand-me-down. Kaiser cracks his knuckles again, his eyes glowing. The goblin instantly changes his mind and thanks his generous master. Kaiser sighs. This minion requires constant threat of violence to function. Then Jihad asks what the plan is. Kaiser smirks. It is time to grind. He points toward the tree line. He dashes into the brush and slaughters a massive forest centipede. He clears out spiders and goblins with terrifying efficiency. Jihad watches from a safe distance, pitying the local monsters. Crossing paths with this human is a guaranteed death sentence. Kaiser calls the goblin over. He rests on his massive sword, catching his breath. He orders Jihad to gather the corpses and turn them into undead minions. The goblin bows and gets to work. He approaches a dead red goblin. He chants a necromancy spell, his eyes glowing bright green. The dark magic seeps into the corpse. The system confirms the successful creation of an undead servant. Jihad presents his small squad of zombies, noting that his current level limits the army size. Kaiser is impressed. Having a personal loot gathering squad is incredibly useful. The undead goblins stand ready, awaiting orders. Kaiser points to the scattered loot drops. They immediately start picking up the items. He asks Jihad how much longer it will take to level up twice. The goblin suggests hunting elite mobs for better experience yields. Kaiser notes that the minion is already delegating the grunt work. He asks where they can find elite spawns. Jihad smiles. He knows exactly where the elite bastards are hiding. Kaiser's eyes widen. The goblin explains that the elites just stand around all day doing nothing. A massive grin spreads across Kaiser's face. An entire camp of elites gathered in one spot is a gold mine. They hike deeper into the forest. Jihad leads the way through the thick underbrush. They arrive at a secluded clearing. A tribe of massive, heavily armored goblins surrounds a campfire. The goblin points them out from the bushes. Kaiser cannot believe his luck. This is crazy. The system triggers a sudden quest, the Warrior's Test. The reward includes an intermediate skill draw ticket. He is absolutely clearing this. An elite goblin reaches for a piece of meat. Suddenly, Kaiser drops from the sky. He lands with a manic grin. He draws his greatsword and swings hard. The blade cleaves the armored goblin in half before it can even react. Another elite throws a heavy punch. Kaiser ducks under the massive fist. He drives a brutal uppercut into the creature's jaw. The goblin spits blood and teeth. Kaiser spins, his sword tearing through 3 more elites in a single arc. He draws his dagger, channeling lightning into the blade. He activates target weakness and dashes through the remaining guards. The bleeding effect applies to the entire group. An elite clutches its chest, collapsing from the rapid health drain. He strikes a combat stance, surrounded by dying monsters. One massive survivor charges him with a club. Kaiser deflects the heavy swing. Sparks fly as steel meets iron. He slides the dagger up the weapon's shaft. He delivers a devastating vertical slash, straight up the goblin's chest. The beast chokes, falling backward. He finishes it with a clean execution strike. The entire camp is wiped out. Suddenly, the ground trembles. Kaiser looks up. A massive axe buries itself into the dirt right where he was standing. A colossal blue-skinned goblin steps into the clearing. The sheer size of the monster dwarfs the regular elites. Jihad watches from the bushes, terrified. That thing is not normal. Kaiser smiles. He just found the hidden field boss. He rests his sword on his shoulder, perfectly calm. Goblin Great Warrior Karuk roars, brandishing a massive frost-covered axe. The system confirms this boss is tied directly to the sudden quest. Karuk charges, his muscles bulging with berserker energy. Kaiser calls him a lucky pouch full of loot. The giant axe comes down like a falling building. Kaiser dashes forward, sliding underneath the massive blade. He ignores the shockwave tearing up the earth behind him. Jihad screams from the brush, warning him that blocking the frost axe will shatter his sword. The ice magic radiating from the weapon is lethal. Karuk activates Ruthless Strike. Kaiser's eyes track the heavy telegraphed swing. The boss brings the weapon down with everything it has, but Kaiser isn't there. Jihad blinks, losing track of his master. Kaiser leaps onto the back of the massive axe mid-swing. Karuk looks up in shock. Kaiser runs up the handle and drives his blade toward the goblin's neck. He grips the hilt tight. He unleashes a barrage of heavy strikes against the boss's guard. The shockwaves from the clash light up the forest. Jihad watches in awe. He cannot comprehend what he is seeing. Karuk swings wide. Kaiser activates the parry skill. The system confirms the perfect deflection. Parry is a transcendent tier skill that can can neutralize anything if the timing is flawless. But because the success window is impossibly small, no one uses it except Kaiser. He deflects the massive blow and grins. He loves low-tier draws with high-skill ceilings. Karuk recovers and triggers another ruthless strike. The axe sweeps horizontally, aiming to cut him in half. Kaiser parries it again. The impact creates a massive blast of light. He counters immediately, bringing his greatsword down hard. The boss staggers. Kaiser mocks him, asking if his skill is on cooldown. Karuk enrages, his eyes glowing bright blue. He triggers Merciless Strike, an even faster attack pattern. The heavy blade sweeps upward. Kaiser parries it a third time, completely shutting down the boss's offense. Aseki loads power into his legs and swings. The greatsword cuts a clean line through the goblin's armor. He confirms the boss is completely out of cooldowns. The monster lets out a final, desperate roar. Jihad watches the brutal execution unfold. Kaiser delivers the killing blow, severing the monster's spine. The giant falls. The sudden quest is marked complete. He receives Karuk's leather armor set. He is ecstatic. 2 intermediate skill draw tickets just dropped. He dances around the loot pile like a madman. Jihad watches him celebrate, slightly disturbed by the mood swing. When he fights, he is a relentless demon. But when he opens loot, he turns into an absolute idiot. He activates the first draw ticket. The digital cards spin through the air. He pulls Ascending Dragon Kick, a rare martial artist skill. The second ticket yields Striking, a rare buffer class skill. He realizes how insane this is. Striking provides a massive, near-infinite attack buff. It essentially doubles his damage output, turning his normal sword into a great sword. He covers his face, overwhelmed by his own luck. A DPS fighter who can buff himself is a broken concept, and he finally gets to use a cool martial arts kick. He inspects the new armor pieces. The red and blue leather set looks like a massive upgrade. He equips the Great Warrior's Ring. He equips the full armor set. His appearance shifts from a ragged mercenary to a high-tier adventurer. He swaps out his weapon for Bastard's training sword. He asks Jihad how the new two-tone look fits him. The goblin admits he looks fine, but adds that his master is genuinely terrifying. Kaiser laughs out loud. He agrees. With this kind of luck, he is a bit afraid of his own potential. He smiles down at the goblin, ready to push even higher. Jihad curses the crazy bastard in his head. The system immediately deducts 1 loyalty point. Kaiser glares at him, asking if he was just cursing him out internally. He draws his sword, promising death if the goblin messes around. Jihad waves his hands frantically, apologizing. The loyalty point returns. Kaiser sighs, sheathing the blade. He orders the goblin to follow him. It is time to move on. Jihad asks where they are heading next. Kaiser states they need to hunt another boss. The goblin is exhausted. They just killed a great warrior, but he shuts his mouth, knowing better than to argue. To travel to the next major city, players must pass the Continental Trial. The first trial requires defeating the field boss, Spider Queen Eliza. The game transitions to the Western Forest. Dozens of players are gathered in the spiderweb zone, waiting for the respawn. 2 warriors check the time. 10 minutes left until the boss appears. A mage wonders which web she will spawn at this time. The massive sticky webs cover the ancient trees, creating a maze. Kaiser and Jihad walk right past the waiting groups, now completely ignored. Kaiser asks his minion if he happens to know the boss's exact location. Jihad shakes his head. She is from a newer generation of monsters. Kaiser sighs. He hoped the goblin's forest knowledge would save them time. The goblin clears his throat awkwardly. Kaiser decides it doesn't matter. He just needs to know where she spawns. He plans to use backstab to steal the kill from the waiting parties. Suddenly, his Slayer trait activates. The location of the Spider Queen is revealed on his map. He looks into the dark woods, confused. He doesn't have a spider-specific Slayer title. The red marker pulses brightly. He realizes the broken truth of his trait. It doesn't just apply to bosses he has defeated. It applies to absolutely all bosses. The system highlights a massive red shape moving through the trees. He grins like a maniac. This means he can monopolize every field boss in the game. He activates backstab and vanishes from the clearing. Deep in the forest, Spider Queen Eliza drops from the canopy. Kaiser materializes right behind her. He smiles. The instant teleportation worked perfectly. Jihad is shocked by the sudden movement. Kaiser ignores him, his eyes locked on the prey. This is an absolute jackpot. He stares up at the monstrous spider. She is disgustingly huge. Eliza turns, her multiple red eyes locking onto the intruder. Kaiser's expression turns lethal. He dashes forward, closing the gap in a blur of motion. He triggers backstab again to bypass her defensive webs. He appears directly in front of her massive mandibles. The spider screeches in surprise. Kaiser activates his new skill. A golden dragon aura wraps around his leg. He delivers the Ascending Dragon Kick straight into her face. The set bonus applies an additional damage multiplier. The beast reels backward, taking the full force of the blow. Kaiser draws his sword, ready to chain the combo. He uses backstab to position himself above her. He drops down like a meteor. Eliza raises her armored legs to defend herself. The golden dragon aura flares again as he strikes. Another brutal kick shatters her guard. The damage numbers stack up rapidly. He prepares to sever her head. The impact craters the ground beneath them. He swings the blade, aiming for the kill. Suddenly, a voice shouts the spider's name. It carves through the thick spider legs, unrelenting. He lands smoothly on the dirt. He pivots instantly for the next attack. He leaps back toward the massive arachnid. He activates the striking buff. His sword ignites with golden flames. The spider stares at him in sheer terror. The golden dragon manifests one more time. He drives the blade deep into her skull. The beast shrieks in agony. The force of the blow pins her to the earth. The massive monster collapses, completely helpless. The voice screams again. It is Jihad. Kaiser ignores the goblin, preparing the final execution strike. He asks the beast if she has any last words. Jihad bursts from the bushes, screaming Eliza's name. The goblin runs toward the fight, panic in his glowing eyes. He begs his master to stop. He calls the execution cruel. Kaiser pummels the spider, ignoring the plea entirely. Jihad reaches out, desperate to save the monster. Kaiser pauses. The name Eliza sounds familiar. He stops his fist mid-air and looks back at his minion. Jihad drops to his knees, and begging him to spare her. Kaiser lowers his weapon, demanding an explanation. The goblin turns to the dying spider, crying out that it is him. The monstrous queen opens one red eye, looking at the tiny goblin in the dirt. Jihad screams the spider's name, desperate for recognition. Eliza freezes. Giant tears well up in her multiple red eyes. A flashback takes us back 150 years. The ancient goblin noble was wandering the woods when he found a tiny, defenseless spider. He scooped the creature up in his hands. He decided to take the little monster with him to his cabin. He debated a name, deciding that Liza sounded a bit too plain. He settled on Eliza, smiling at his new companion. But one evening, Jihad reached for his cloak. He told the tiny spider she could not follow him into the dark. He promised he would return and stepped out the door. Eliza waited on the floor. Days turned into nights, and the moon cycled through the sky. Her master never came back. She grew massive, left the rotting cabin, and moved to the western forest, and waiting for a century and a half just to hear that name again. Back in the present, Jihad throws his arms around the monster's face, weeping. Kaiser lowers his weapon and asks if the goblin just abandoned his pet. Jihad flinches, the guilt washing over him. He buries his face into the spider's fur, overwhelmed by the reunion. Kaiser asks the obvious question: why hide in a secret dungeon for 150 years? Jihad's expression darkens. He explains that speaking of it is beyond his current capabilities.